So, Sam and I just did a video where we talked about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. This cheap, low-budget movie that was never meant to be released. Little did we know that we were talking about the best Fantastic Four movie. So, Fantastic Four is the latest attempt to reboot this franchise, and boy, does it fail. It fails miserably. I mean, this movie is a near disaster. I'll be honest, I don't hate it nearly as much as everybody else does. I still don't like it. I still think it's a really bad movie. Jeez, they got so much wrong. Where do I begin? I'm not going to describe the plot because it's just a little tweaked version of the origin story of the Fantastic Four, so I don't want to get into that. I'll start out with what I like about the movie, because there are a few positives. Not a lot, but there's a few. The cast of the movie is fine. They all do their job well. They don't have a whole lot of chemistry, like at all, but their performances are all good. The best out of all the cast would probably be Miles Teller as Reed Richards, and that's because his character has the most development. He's the main character of the movie mostly. So his was the most interesting character. He had the most going for him. So the cast was fine. The effects are all pretty good. The Thing looks really good. Yeah, he doesn't have pants or anything, but honestly, it didn't bother me while watching the movie. I know a lot of people hate that, but it didn't really bother me while watching the movie. He looked good, and a lot of the effects were good. There's one awful effect where Reed Richards changes his face into somebody else's. That was terrible. But for the most part, the effects are good. And there's two key standout scenes in the movie that I really enjoyed. The first scene being after they transport to the other dimension in their experiment, everything goes wrong and they transport back and everything's chaotic. And then it cuts to Reed Richards waking up in the lab with everything's destroyed, everything's on fire, and it's this really bleak, dark, and scary scene of him waking up. His helmet is smashed, there's blood all over his face, and he sees Johnny Storm, who looks like he's dead. He's just lying there on fire, and he's trying to crawl to Ben Grimm, who's stuck under these rocks. And it's just this terrifying, just creepy scene, and I really like that. Then, the scene right after that, where all the main characters are just lying on these tables being observed by the government. And you just get this eerie vibe from it, where Reed Richards is lying on this table and he's just like calling out, he's like, "Where's Ben? What's going on?" And they're just not even listening to him. It's like, "Can you move your finger? Okay, can you do that?" And then you see Johnny Storm, he's just lying there unconscious on fire, and then he wakes up and starts freaking out. It's this really just dark, it's a great scene, it's really creepy, and I loved that. And then there's another good moment near the end, it involves Doctor Doom, who is terrible in the film. Doctor Doom is, I'm going to get to him later, but there's one good moment to him. One of his powers is that, like, telepathically he can cause heads to explode, and it's surprisingly graphic. So you actually see blood explode. There's a scene of him just walking down this hallway, the lights are flickering, people are running, and people's little heads are exploding, and you actually see kind of blood splatter against the wall, not like in close-up or anything, but I was like, geez, this is a really well-shot scene, and I liked that they actually went for the blood in that scene. And so I like that. So there's those moments. And that's about it. That's the only thing I really like about this movie. One of the major problems with this movie is the plot structure. It just doesn't flow right because it waits a long time for them to get their powers. It feels like almost halfway through the movie until they get their powers. It's probably a little bit less than that, but it feels like it. Because the first half of this movie, whereas I didn't hate it, I was kind of into it with them building the machine and everything. I didn't hate it. I was just kind of like, yeah, it's okay, just kind of going through the motions. And then, after they get their powers, that's when the movie just completely falls apart. So the plot structure gets so messed up because they get their powers, and then it cuts to a year later. And everybody, Johnny Storm and Sue Storm, they're all adjusted to their abilities. And it's like, I feel like I missed a whole second act of a movie right there. Because it's just rushing. And then the climax of this movie, this is one of the worst third acts I've ever seen in a movie. I'll be honest. The third act of this movie was awful. It felt like this movie doesn't have many action scenes. It's a very slow-paced movie. and it doesn't have a whole lot of action scenes. There's a little quick scene with Reed Richards in the forest, but aside from that, the characters don't use their superpowers in like action-y stuff till the climax of this movie. And I felt like they made a movie with no action scenes, and the producers were like, oh god, we need action scenes. Throw in a big, giant CGI heavy climax. Because that's what the last like 20 minutes of this movie is, and it's so rushed, so messy, and it's just, they find Dr. Doom, he breaks out of the lab, wants to open a black hole. I don't know what he was trying to do, and then they have to go fight him, and it was so sloppy. I don't even recall, I don't even remember how they even defeated Dr. Doom. I honestly don't remember, and I just saw this movie today. It was just bad. I mean, the effects looked good, I guess, but again, I really felt like they just wanted to have a generic big action scene in the movie, and they didn't have one, so they just threw this one in there, and it falls completely apart. It is terrible. And then you have Dr. Doom. This is, not only is it the worst like interpretation of Dr. Doom, it is nothing like the comics Dr. Doom one bit. Not only because he doesn't look like him at all, but also by the way he acts and everything like that. It just is not Dr. Doom. But putting that aside, as it plays out in this movie, the character is still terrible because you don't understand his abilities. They don't explain any of that. It's just that it's presumed that Doom dies when they're exploring the alternate dimension or whatever, and then when they go back around the movie, they discover Doom, and then he comes back to life and then wants to open the black hole. Like, he doesn't do anything. He just comes in right at the last act of the movie, just as like this really quick third act villain with no development whatsoever. You don't understand what his abilities are, what he can do. It just feels made up on the spot. Like, oh, he can somehow telepathically make people's heads explode. Oh, now he can fly? Now he can... I don't know what he can do. And it's so ridiculous. That was terrible. The actor that got to play him is a good actor. His name escapes me right now, but he's a good actor. He was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, actually. He played the main villain ape in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He's a good actor. It's just the character was so terribly written that it was so just pointless. There's so many problems with this movie. The movie, you could tell it suffers from heavy reshoots. Just especially I feel in the last half of the movie. I feel the first half is pretty much what it would have been like originally. I feel the second half, after they get their abilities, is when they start changing a lot of things. Mostly because one of the most glaring, obvious mistakes in this movie is the reshoot wig on Sue Storm. It is the most obvious blonde wig, and it doesn't match other scenes. You go from having her in the wig to scenes of her with the regular hair, and it's so obvious. And most of that happens during the last half of this movie, especially in the climax. I'm pretty sure the entire climax was her with the wig on. So that stuck out to me. And then I just got more entertained just trying to spot the wig than actually watching the movie and getting invested in the story, because I didn't care about the story one friggin' bit. But that was ridiculous. I feel this movie could have worked. I think that's the one thing that disappoints me, because I went into this movie with no expectations. I never really cared about this movie, and I'm not saying because I thought the movie looked bad. I've just never been a big Fantastic Four fan, and the trailers didn't do anything for me. They didn't look stupid. They just didn't look like anything special, so I didn't go into this movie expecting anything. But the one thing that disappointed me is that there's stuff in the movie that has potential. Now, some people are going to hate me for saying this, but the whole darker, more serious sci-fi tone of this film, which I know a lot of people hate, I actually think could have worked if done right. I know Fantastic Four is a lighthearted characters, it's a lighthearted type of story. I get it, but I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan, so I don't mind change. And I wouldn't have minded if I wouldn't have minded this tone. The only problem is they don't do anything. They don't do it right. Aside from those couple scenes I mentioned that I loved, they were really dark and serious and creepy. Aside from those scenes, it doesn't do it right, and the movie comes out as dull because it's almost lifeless with its serious tone, no humor. Well, there is some humor, but it's unfunny and really bad. So with having no humor, you don't get invested at all. And I feel if this makes any sense with the dark tone, if they made the characters more interesting and had it more humorous and played up on that aspect a bit more, I actually the tone would have worked. But the tone doesn't work when your script is terrible, like this script is. There's stuff also, speaking of reshoots and everything, there's stuff in the trailer that's missing from this movie.
Don't let any of these lab coats give you any crap, alright?
Well, if I do, I know who to call. The Muscle.
Of generations to come. Be ready for what's coming.
What is coming?
The answers.
It was bad. It was bad. Granted, again, I didn't hate it. I liked those scenes. Those scenes were great. The first half didn't annoy me. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't very engaging. But I was watching the first half of the movie and I was like, this isn't as awful as everybody's saying. It's just once they get the superpowers that they just totally, the story just takes a nosedive. And then when it gets to that third act, just crushes and just is dead by then. Oh, can the Fantastic Four go back to Marvel Studios now? Like, that'd be really nice because this movie sucks. Out of 10, this rating would be a tad bit higher if it wasn't for that atrocious ending, but due to that ending, I don't think I can give this thing any higher than a 3.5. I can't. I want to give it a bit higher because I didn't think the opening was that bad, but man, that last half just completely brings it down. So speaking of reshoot changes, one of the things that everybody was complaining about was that they changed Victor Von Doom's name to Dumashev or something like that. And yeah, they changed it back to Von Doom in this movie just to please the fans. But too bad they couldn't change the entire movie to please the fans, because that would have been nice. The most frustrating thing about this movie is that it had potential. With the better script, this could have been a really cool, unique sci-fi comic book movie that is different than what we've been getting lately. And that would have been awesome. There's hints of that. There's glimpses of that throughout the film. But it just comes off as just a mess. If they were able to get a better script and get the actors to act like they cared about each other and actually were friends and, that stuff, interactions. If they were able to do that, this could have been a really good movie. And that's the most frustrating thing about it. One thing I forgot to mention earlier in my positives for the movie is I like the concept that the government is making the Fantastic Four work for them, since the government's funding this whole thing, and that's probably what they would have done. It's a really interesting concept, and I like that idea. Now, nothing I'll habitually done, and then it gets really depressing because they make the Thing go out and kill people. There's a scene where he's just watching video footage of him, and it says the Thing kill count 43. It's like, what? And the Thing's all just sad, and I'm like, this is depressing. But either way, that's Fantastic Four. Oh wow, that's a crap movie. And that's all I can say. There's probably a few more things I can find, but this is good enough. And that's about it for now. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.